Your Excellencies, please take your seats. The opening plenary session is about to begin.
Good to see you, my friend. How are you? Good to see you again. Very slow on parking. So it's always you coming to saving the day.
How are you?
How are you?
Bless.
You look good. Everything goes well. When do we have elections?
October 20? Busy. Have a very hot winter.
When we finish these elections, we will
Let's see.
Your Excellencies, please take your seats. The opening plenary session is about to begin.
Sorry, but no. Good to see you. Congratulations.
Yes, we're looking for Robert.
Table number 2.
Your Excellencies, please take your seats. The opening plenary session is about to begin.
Enchanté.
l'Union européenne.
Enchanté.
Enchantée.
Je suis le directeur de communication du Premier ministre.
Je pars dans 15 jours. Je suis née à Paris, mais j'ai quand même eu une très longue
Oui.
mission. Une très belle mission.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Friends, fellow Europeans, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Britain and to the splendour of Blenheim Palace. I hope you enjoyed the weather, the drive, and the architecture of this beautiful place. Thank you so much for being here. It is, of course, the birthplace of Winston Churchill, and we stand for the values that he embodies around the world. Liberty and democracy, yes, of course, but also defiance and resolve in their defence. And today, as a new storm gathers over our continent, we choose to meet it in that same spirit, and we choose to meet it together. And that is the choice of the government that I lead, now 2 weeks old. We want to work with all of you to reset relationships, rediscover our common interest, and renew the bonds of trust and friendship that brighten the fabric of European life. And the task is urgent because our security is on the line. Every day Ukraine fights to protect not just the Ukrainian people, but the European people, a continent where our belief in freedom, democracy and the rule of law was hard won and that wants to live in peace. So, President Zelensky, in your struggle to uphold those values, we salute you once again. Have no doubt we will stand with you for as long as it takes. Because I was struck by something that you said, in fact, last week during the NATO summit, when you said Ukraine needs more air defence, and then you used these words, before the new school year starts. And that really struck me. Because returning to school after the summer break, that should be a moment of joy, of excitement for children. New uniforms, new exercise books, seeing how much their friends have grown over the summer holidays, and reuniting with friends. How could anyone consider that a target? So, our first task here today is to confirm our steadfast support for Ukraine, to unite once again behind those values that we cherish, and to say we will face down aggression on this continent together. Because the threat from Russia reaches right across Europe. Many of us have seen attacks on our own democracy, people targeted on our streets, military planes entering our airspace, ships patrolling our coastlines. And in Moldova and the Western Balkans, the threat is obviously even more acute. So this is the moment for us all to do more. And I'm proud of Britain's role in maintaining European security through NATO, through the Joint Expeditionary Force, and more. We stand together, we guard Europe's frontiers, and now we must find new, more ambitious ways of working together, firing up our industries, meeting not just the military challenge, but the challenge to our economic, cyber and energy security as well. I take a practical view of how the UK can meet this moment. I'm not driven by ideology, but by what's best for my country. And so we will strengthen our existing relationships and we will build new ones. This includes resetting our relationship with the EU, because I believe that the UK and the EU, working together as sovereign partners, are a powerful force for good across our continent, for peace, for security, for prosperity, for all our people. We've shown this, I think, in the G7, where we are using Russian assets to ensure they pay for the devastation they have brought to Ukraine. We're placing unprecedented sanctions on Russia and reducing our collective dependence on Russian oil and gas. And I think we should take pride in the steps that our continent has taken on this. But now we must see the job through. We must use this moment to accelerate towards clean energy, support Ukraine to meet its energy needs ahead of winter, and tackle the ships that are helping Russia to evade sanctions. We know what we can achieve together, but it's also time that we bring this resolve to another challenge facing our continent: the vile trade of people smuggling. Let's be frank, challenge is the wrong word. It is now, I think, a crisis. As we speak, as we gather here, a criminal empire is at work in every country represented here today, profiting off human misery and desperation, prepared to send infants, babies, pregnant mothers, innocent people to their deaths. And last week, 4 more souls, and actually last night another one, were lost in the waters of the English Channel, a chilling reminder of the human cost of this vile trade. And this summit is an opportunity to set a new path on illegal migration, to transform the way that we work together on border security and law enforcement, and to say together, no more. And in the UK, our new Border Security Command will work in partnership with you. We must combine our resources, share intelligence, share tactics, shut down the smuggling routes, and smash the gangs. Before I came into politics, I was the Director of Public Prosecutions in Britain, a job I held for 5 years, and I saw and participated in the work that can be done across borders on issues like counter-terrorism, sophisticated gangs working across our borders. And we use those same techniques to take those gangs down to ensure the safety of citizens across Europe. And so I, for one, simply do not accept and will never accept that we can't do the same with the smuggling gangs, that somehow they're the only gangs that can operate across Europe with impunity. I just never will accept that, having been involved myself in taking down of terrorist gangs. So we must do more together. We must also do more to tackle the problem, of course, at source, to recognise the root causes. We know what they are: conflict, climate change, extreme poverty. The crisis we face is the fault of the gangs, no question. But the decisions people take to leave their homes cannot be separated from the wider issues. It is global inequality, and that deserves our attention as well. So let me say something here very clearly. We are resetting our approach here. This government will not commit taxpayer money to gimmicks. We are here to serve our country in the national interest, in pursuit of solutions that will actually deliver results. And more than that, we will approach this issue with humanity and with a profound respect for international law. And that's why we scrapped the unworkable Rwanda scheme on day one. And it's why we will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. Churchill himself was among the chief architects of the convention. It was built on the blood bond of 1945 and our shared sacrifice for freedom. I myself first read about the principles of the convention and international law in a law library in Leeds, 40 years ago now. And that inspired me in everything that I have done since. And I draw strength from it and value from it every day, because they speak about the dignity of every human being. And that word dignity is there in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, one of the most important words in it. Dignity of every human being, the very essence of what it is to be human. And that is our legacy. And so the nations of Europe must lead again today. Together we have the opportunity to make the world safer, fairer and more prosperous. So let's use this moment to do more for Ukraine, defend our democracies, secure our energy supplies and tackle illegal immigration. It is a pleasure today on behalf of my country to extend a hand to all of you, to say that under my leadership, Britain will be a friend and a partner, ready to work with you, not part of the European Union, but very much part of Europe, not focused on the differences between us, but on the values that we share, united by our determination to defend them, and certain about what we can achieve together. And now, I would like to invite a true champion of European freedom to address the plenary, our friend, President Zelensky. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Thank you for your kind words about us, about Ukraine, about our fight, and thank you for confirming that relations and cooperation between Ukraine and Britain, as well as between Britain and all of Europe, remains crucial. Dear friends, dear partners, we are now at Blenheim, and indeed this place is associated with Winston Churchill, and however this palace is not solely connected to him. Among many, it is him who we remember with special esteem, and it is he who adds grandeur to Blenheim. We hold dear Churchill's jokes and remarks, though we probably wouldn't want to be the subject of such biting humor. We return to his speeches and measures our own principles against his decisions, aspiring to similar heights. Yet, it was not this that created his legend. It was his ability to be a steadfast barrier between history and cowardice. And that is the key reason people still look up to him. Bravery made Churchill Churchill. Bravery won the greatest battle of his life. It was the battle for Britain and, of course, for all Europe. Will Europe be a continent that neither surrenders nor sells itself to tyrants? Will Europe be a continent of nations and communities, not a few Führers and their hatred? It was resolved then, and we all see how much the bravery of previous generations has won for us. They secured this Europe for us, which has been peaceful for so long. And now our bravery and cooperation must achieve no less, so that the children of our nations can someday look back at us, at what we've done, at what we've chosen, at what we have promised, and see the pillars of their peace, their security and their prosperity, just as we see it when we look back at the most famous person from Blenheim. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear leaders, I will focus on 3 points today. First, we have maintained unity in Europe and are acting together, which means that Putin has missed his primary target. He has failed to create division in Europe. The more decisive Europe is in preserving this unity, the long-lasting peace we will ensure. Putin cannot sustain relationships with truly strong leaders, and this is our advantage, but it remains an advantage only as long as we are united. He may try to approach you or go to some of your partners individually, trying to tempt or pressure you, to blackmail you so that one of you betrays the rest, weakening our unity. Yes, everyone chooses for themselves how to act, of course, and what legacy to leave. But if someone in Europe tries to resolve issues behind others' backs or even at the expense of someone else, if someone wants to make some trips to the capital of war to talk and perhaps promise something against our common interests or at the expense of Ukraine or other countries, then why should we consider such a person? The EU and NATO can also address all their issues without this one individual. Second, the reality on the battlefield is more convincing than any abstract deliberations. We have stopped the Russian advance on Kharkiv, period. Putin has sacrificed tens of thousands of his citizens, but has achieved nothing significant. This was made possible by the bravery of our warriors and the bravery of our partners, who have lifted limitations on the use of Western weapons along our border. Did this lead to escalation? No. On the contrary, it blocked Putin's attempt to expand the war. Did Putin have any response? No. Even when the Russian missile strikes children with cancer, as happened recently, it only repeats the evil we have already seen from Russia in this war. So we must act as brave as necessary to achieve results. We can steer this war towards its just ending with the power of our weapons and our diplomacy, and we should not fear these capabilities. The more effective our air defense is, the more helpless Putin will be. The fewer restrictions we have on the use of effective weapons, the more Russia will seek peace. Military airfields from which Russian jets take off with bombs against our cities, our people, our children, and the launch sites of Russian missiles, all these must be destroyed. This will not only eliminate some targets, but will also reduce Russia's capability to continue this war. The missiles and drones are not bearers of state sovereignty, so there must be a collective will to shoot them down, just as it was within Iranian missiles and drones. I appeal to all of you, to all leaders who can contribute to the required bravery. These steps must be taken. And I address primarily United States, UK, France, Germany, Poland, and other friends. Your bravery can be decisive for peace. And third, diplomacy. Everything that adds to our collective strength is useful for bringing peace closer. And I thank all of you for supporting the opening of negotiations for Ukraine's membership in the EU. This proved that even in the most difficult circumstances, the EU can keep its promises, and it gave Ukraine moral strength. The people fighting for Ukraine and for Europe should feel that Europe is becoming closer. And I also want to thank those of you who firmly support Ukraine on its path to NATO. Although the Ukraine's membership has not yet united all 32 NATO states, we have achieved that the complete elimination of this security deficit in Europe through Ukraine's accession to NATO has become irreversible. And what we must do at most this year are peace summits. I'm grateful to Switzerland and all the partners who helped us organize the first peace summit. It was a success for everyone who wants a just end to this war. Now we are preparing for the second summit, and soon working groups will begin on the points of the peace formula. These are energy security, food security, and the humanitarian group that will deal with the release of prisoners and the return of deportees. Later, there will be other groups, and I ask all of you to support these efforts, join the common work, and choose for yourself the points of the peace formula where you can show your leadership. And please, this is very important, convince the partners around the globe that they also have to be brave regardless of threats and blackmail. Their joint efforts are needed for the sake of peace. When the aggressor loses, the world wins. This has happened repeatedly in human history. It must happen this time too to the Russia's aggression. Thank you very much. Thank you for every life saved by your support. Thank you for the invitation, Prime Minister. Slava Ukraini. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vladimir. I would now like to invite the President of the Swiss Confederation, Viola, to address the plenary.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is an honor for me to address you all at this fourth gathering of the European political community. Switzerland values the EPC as a space for Europe, defined by geography and based on a common idea of what is Europe. The EPC is valuable as a platform to have open, inclusive and frank discussions about the challenges we face. These challenges are of unprecedented complexity. We need to address them together as Europeans. I thank Prime Minister Starmer for the kind invitation to share my impressions of the Summit on Peace in Ukraine that Switzerland hosted a month ago. With the summit, we aimed to address the most pressing challenge our continent faces. Looking back, I believe it is fair to say that we achieved what we had aspired for. For the first time, voices from all corners of the globe came together at the highest level to talk about how to achieve a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. The Bürgenstock Summit represents the only initiative that enjoys broad support across all continents. More than 100 countries and international organizations joined the discussions. This global support is essential in order to take substantial steps towards a just and lasting peace. Other peace plans don't enjoy the same kind of endorsement. One reason may be that the UN Charter as the central foundation for a future peace is missing in some of those plans. Thanks to this broad support and the concrete propositions we discussed in Switzerland, we managed to lay the foundations for the path towards a potential peace process. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all of you for your tireless efforts to mobilize for the summit and for your active contributions prior to and during the conference. Your support played a central role in building this foundation and the momentum the summit was able to generate. I thank the UK, the EU, and in particular the staff of the Council Presidency, the Commission and the External Action Service, and also countless others who are present here today for the excellent cooperation. Despite the different points of view that were shared on the Bürgenstock, we managed to agree on a common vision. This vision is summed up in the Bürgenstock communiqué, which has been signed by 87 countries so far. Additional countries continue to sign the communiqué, even some of which were not present at the summit. This text can provide a basis on which further discussions can take place. With the summit, we managed to take a first step on the challenging path ahead towards a peace process. We are currently discussing with Ukraine and key partners what the next steps could look like. And we are working to use and sustain the momentum to elaborate such concrete steps, including on the issues identified in the Bürgenstock communiqué. Firstly, any use of nuclear energy and nuclear installations must be safe, secured, safeguarded, and environmentally sound. Secondly, food security must not be weaponized in any way. Attacks on merchant ships and ports and along the entire route, as well as against civilian ports and civilian port infrastructures, are unacceptable. Thirdly, all prisoners of war must be released. All deported and unlawfully displaced Ukrainian children and all other Ukrainian civilians who were unlawfully detained must be returned to Ukraine. What is already clear is that the active engagement and support of our European friends, be they the EU, its member states, or our other European partners here today, remain crucial. Switzerland welcomes the follow-up conferences on the 3 issues that President Zelensky just announced. This is exactly what we had worked and hoped for. Switzerland is ready to continue to play an active role in this process. We will particularly focus on strengthening the bridges that we have been able to build to the Global South and China. We have been getting very positive feedbacks on the summit, even from colleagues in the Global South who have so far refrained from signing the Bürgenstock communiqué. It is now essential to reach out to them, take their concerns into account, and motivate them to join the Bürgenstock communiqué. I count on your support in this outreach endeavor, and I very much look forward to continuing our close cooperation with all of you, including with Ukraine, as European partners standing together in solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Viola. I'd now like to invite the Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette, to address the plenary. The floor is yours.
First of all, thank you, Keir, for your hospitality today, and I commend you for making Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its wider implications for all of us the focus of this plenary session. I don't believe Russia sees its attempts at grabbing Ukraine's territory as the final step, rather as just one step on the way to realizing its imperial dreams and ambitions. We cannot allow Putin to redraw the borders of a sovereign country by force, not in Ukraine and not anywhere else on the globe. After the invasion of Crimea in 2014, we tried as Europeans to reason with Russia, to negotiate with Russia, based on the hope that Russia would respect the rules that we play by. But they did not respect the agreements made. Our common strategy of negotiating on their terms did not work. Russia was not to be trusted then, and Russia is not to be trusted now. And so, appeasement did not work then, as appeasement will not work now. And this brings us to a very decisive moment for Europe. Supporting Ukraine against Russia's war of aggression is about our collective security and values. It is the challenge of our time. We have said for 2.5 years now that we cannot let Ukraine lose. I think we need to be open about the facts here. In order for Ukraine not to lose, Ukraine needs to win this war. There is only one winner in the gray zones, and that will be Russia. If anything, that should be our collective learning from Russia's land grab in 2014 and the following negotiations in the Normandy format. Peacetime processes are too slow for wartime tasks, and there has been too much hesitation. Even though I'm also very proud of all of us being united for such a long time, I still think there has been too much hesitation. But we still have time to make the right decisions and take the right actions. And therefore, first of all, I think we have to support Ukraine in its peace process. And there can be no discussions about Ukraine without Ukraine. As William Allen White once said, peace without justice is tyranny. But a just peace is not a possibility when only one side is engaging in honest. Russia could end this war today. It could just pull out its troops and peace would be instant. And we must not be naive about the broader picture either. I think we have to be very aware of the confluence of interests between Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and yes, unfortunately, also China. If we allow, as Europeans, if we allow Russia to be rewarded of its aggression, of its murdering thousands of people, we create a new problematic incentive for other land grabs worldwide. Secondly, we must deliver the necessary military support for Ukraine, and I think we have to scale up our own military capabilities. To use your own words the other day, compassion is not a weapon. It will not protect Ukraine. It will not protect the kids of Ukraine. Only our common actions will. The decisions we made at NATO summit last week were, I think, important. They built the necessary bridge to Ukraine's future membership of NATO. And this includes bilateral security commitments that have been concluded since the NATO summit in Vilnius. Seen together, I think they provide certainty and a long-term perspective for the flow of support. But my main message today is that Ukraine, and thereby Europe's future, is decided right now. We need to secure all necessary deliveries to Ukraine urgently. Ukraine needs air defense, ammunition, more heavy weapons to push Russia outside Ukraine's territory and to put an end to Russia's relentless attacks. I think we have been talking too much about defending Ukraine. Now it's time to push Russia back. Seeing as today we find ourselves in the birthplace of Churchill, I will use a befitting quote from him. It is not enough that we do our best. Sometimes we have to do what's required. And in doing so, I think we need to think creatively. On the Danish side, we have worked very hard to support production of military equipment directly, internally in Ukraine. You know best what is needed at the battlefield. The equipment, to be honest with you, dear colleagues, can often be produced cheaper and more effectively in Ukraine. So by joining forces and pooling resources, we can ensure that the flow of the needed military equipment corresponds to the needs of Ukraine. Another example is, of course, the Czech initiative. We hope to deliver almost 500,000 artillery shells before the end of this war, this year. But we all know around this table that there are more available ammunition stocks that could be released to be used in Ukraine. I think all of us has to spend substantially more on our national defense. We have to find new ways inside the European Union to ensure this. And all of us have to invest substantially more in our defense industry, and we need to do it now. And we have to stop going about this task in front of us with a peacetime mindset, not in Ukraine, but the rest of us. As the old Roman saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. Finally, and let me end by this, with some few words on closer European cooperation, because this dimension also plays a crucial role in fostering greater European security. It goes for Europe and for Ukraine, and it goes for all participants at this meeting. Just one example, we cannot overstate the importance of the European Union accession negotiations started with Ukraine and Moldova. I would like to congratulate both you, Volodymyr, and Maya, for the great achievement you have already made. Thank you, Keir.
Thank you, Mette, and I look forward to building on those powerful words that we've heard from all our speakers this morning. Now we move to the family photo. You should have received an envelope which tells you your position. I